sitting today. I don't normally get to do it sitting. I don't have to do it standing. This feels a lot more comfortable. Thank you all so much for coming to the Not Enough Future artist panel. We are at the Harold J. Miossi Gallery are really blessed and thrilled with being able to bring artists into the Cuesta campus and to have them interact with our students, and to have a chance to have the artists come and give talks and discussions and be able to broadcast it over YouTube. The Harold J. Miossi Art Gallery strives to try and forward the conversation and bring in interesting and challenging artists and to add to the cultural quality and richness of San Luis Obispo. And I think Not Enough Future very much fits that bill. When this show came into being, I reached out to Connie Martin Trevino, who is my co-curator, and asked her if she wanted to co-curate a show with me. The drive behind that was really because I'm not only interested in Connie's work, but I'm also interested in Connie's thoughts and mind for artwork. Connie is a lifelong artist and is deeply involved in the Los Angeles art scene, and I knew that partnering with her I'd be able to tap into something that was really special and timely of the moment in Los Angeles. Lo and behold, Connie delivered quite well. Not Enough Future is her concept. When I approached her, I asked her, what could we come up with, and what artists would you be interested in working with? Which ones would you find valuable? What artists resonate with your work? And Connie came back with a list of amazing artists, and all I had to do was say yes, and we started on the process. So tonight we have 5 artists joining us here. Sadly, we couldn't have all the artists join us, but we are blessed to have 5 of the artists here. So first we have Connie Martin Trevino, the co-curator of Not Enough Future, which is really wonderful. We have Kate Sikorsky here, right here in the middle. Robin Strayhorn, John Trevino, right over here, and Lisa Diana Wedgeworth. And so tonight, my hope is that we can have a conversation exploring the ideas that are kind of filtering through the exhibition, touching on some of the artwork and some of the larger issues that the exhibition's exploring. This idea of making artwork and being creative in a time of uncertainty, of geopolitical strife, and of deep and systemic change that's happening within our culture. So without further ado, I'd love to ask this panel some questions and let them kind of take it away. I think it's only fair that we start with Connie. So Connie is an artist, if I ever knew an artist, and began as a photographer and as a collage artist, and then bloomed into ceramics in a way that I've never seen anybody kind of find a medium and just explode into. So Connie, I would love to know, with this kind of outlet that you found within ceramics, how and within our show's kind of concept of like kind of this insecure time, kind of bridging into a new medium and kind of re-establishing yourself within a new art form. Like, what has been your experience with that? How have you found that? And what have been some touchstones for you kind of in the area that you've kind of reached out to for support?
Well, it is interesting because this ceramics is something that I'm relatively new to, and I wasn't really ever thought of myself as a sculptor. So when I first held a ball of clay, I didn't necessarily gazillion hours of YouTube. I was reading so much material, I was buying so many books. I did try to take some classes. I mean, I really just dived in because it was like my mind was blown by the possibilities, and that I could make this 3D object, and I didn't necessarily have to have an idea. I could just go with how I was feeling. I could do what spoke to me. It could be anything that I wanted it to be, and I just felt like I could be limitless, and I could just do it, not knowing whether or not if it would resonate with anyone. And so I think when I kind of took a couple of classes, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna find my tribe. I'm gonna find some people. People aren't necessarily as kind of like, when you do all kinds of things, you think you have folks, and then you realize you're kind of out there by yourself. And in some ways that's okay, because you can really channel and focus and just kind of like be in your own sort of headspace and just create. And so I don't have a ceramic support team, to call. And but aside from doing my own research, I reach out and find ways to kind of like problem solve things that I may not necessarily be familiar with, because I'm not formally taught, and I am still new and I'm still learning. But I still find that I'm able to kind of feel as though I'm able to kind of like blossom and go. And it's been, I can't even describe how happy it makes me feel on the inside.
So my next question. So Kate, you, like Connie, kind of took a fairly large turn in your artwork. Being a portraiture artist previous to your current kind of body of work, and you, whether you made a choice or had a choice made for you, and you turned into this new kind of unknown body of work. And then not only that, you take it the next step further into the more unknown area of animation, and driving your artwork into an unknown space, being from the traditional model of rendering and drawing from life. What's that been like for you as your life has kind of changed and kind of grown, and you've been going through some very, very challenging times?
Thank you. That's a good question. Thanks. Yeah. Hold on. I'm nervous though. So the chip technology is what you're referring to?
Well, and animation, I think.
The animation.
Yeah.
Well, some of those actually. So during COVID, I got like the largest grant I ever had, and it was like an interactive animation thing. And so I had already been doing animation before that, because I had a show right as we were going into COVID. It was like in East LA, and everything, like the whole George Floyd thing happened like right as I was opening, so I had to totally change what I was going to. So nobody was going to go to it, so I had to just make some animations and through the window instead of the hangouts I was going to do. So I had already started doing animation, but I didn't have any training in it, so I was just looking online and buying the paper with the pegs that, like early Disney and stuff like that, where you use a white box and you just, and then uploading them into Photoshop, which is probably like the slowest, worst quality way to do it. But, that question, sorry, I get nervous.
Well, so Connie took a big leap and changed her direction
Yeah.
in her work, and took on a new medium. And you
Started doing
changed.
landscapes.
Yeah, you stopped doing portraiture, and you moved into these environmentally based like drawings, and like investigating scientifically the space around you.
Yeah, I started getting really into how the water moves as it rolls over the boulders. touch the artwork, the animation pops up on your phone. I had been doing portraits that like emit sound before this, so I was kind of into these like hybrid works on paper that have these new tech elements. So I've always kind of had that interest and surfing interest. I think not enough features. My mom typed that in and she said, have a look at this. There's a lot of directions that can go. Apparently that's a concept. You guys should look it up. And a lot of the things it was talking about where you feel like stagnation, like AI spit back, okay, you want to get past stagnation, focus in the moment and everything. And I was like, wow, that's kind of what I was meditating when I did all these things, and that kind of helped me during that time. I don't know if that answers.
I think I answered. So Lisa, I know that you, the work you produce for this show, while you're not necessarily deviating in your larger body of work necessarily, but this work is relatively unique for this show. It's not necessarily something that you would produce within your normal studio practice. It's kind of this maybe more cathartic or maybe more investigative or risky approach. What was it? What was the process like for you? And having listened to you talk today, I know you are an artist who takes risks within their work anyway. What was it like, kind of producing this work that I feel like is it's looser, it's more vulnerable, it's kind of putting yourself out there. The marks are really raw. It's definitely not minimalist. What's that process been like?
Well, with these new works, I definitely gave myself permission to not know what I was doing, because I was working very differently with my previous work, 6 foot by 6 foot black abstract paintings. I made work in a particular way, pouring paint, making mark making in a very specific way. With these new works, I intentionally only wanted to use a palette knife because I needed to make some new investigations in painting, some new explorations rather, and that really stemmed from this desire to explore these feelings and thoughts and awarenesses that I was having after surviving an apartment fire, but also simultaneously I knew that I wanted to start painting very differently, and I needed to push myself to do that. It's like, a lot of things were happening in my life around the same time. I survived this apartment fire, I have these feelings, I'm teaching a beginning painting class and giving them instruction in mixing color, and then realizing, hey, I never did that when I was in school. I need to actually do that for myself. Doing that in the studio, something opening up in me that helps me to process, interpret, retell these feelings and put them in physical form. And it's really been a freeing journey. Again, there's no, yes, I've been trained as an artist and a visual creative person, but with this process, it really is about this exploration of mixing, and then as I'm doing this and making these marks and smearing and playing with these different tints, tones, and shades, I have no idea what's going to come up, right? So I'm just letting myself be this vessel for all of these things that have been moving around me, that I've been feeling, and not trying to judge them as good or bad. Every now and then there's something like, okay, that really isn't working, like whatever this is supposed to be. And there are a few that I've painted over. And even though I'm doing it, I'm like, okay, you're not supposed to be judging it, but yeah, this really is not a thing, I'm surprised myself by what I see and what comes through. I'm like, oh, I'll go out and come back, let things dry, see it in the morning. Like, oh, this is working. This is it. Like, I can feel it. I can tell. This is saying something. So it's opened me up to new paintings. I still want to make those black paintings. But this is definitely the right path that I'm on. And I was telling Connie and Robin earlier that I want to make 100 of them. And it's not simply about the number, but I understand that by making 100, it's like preparing for a marathon, right? You don't just run 1 mile and then run a 26-mile marathon. You have to run every day and then you extend that. Although my sister actually did that. She ran the LA Marathon many years ago and never trained. But I understand that by making these 100 small paintings, it will give me the opportunity to really tap into what I want and need, and I'll discover that as it comes along.
John, within this kind of like new process of mark making, I think of your work as particularly interesting because I think it's certainly tapping into an experimental process, a new process than what I've seen in your work before. And I'd just love to know, like, kind of, as an artist who is, you know, relatively always interested in kind of exploring something else and something new. What's this process of kind of taking your artwork kind of back to the wall and like kind of you know, moving into a large scale kind of installation process been like for you?
Well, I think, so it's interesting, it's like one of the things, like when it comes to people kind of knowing your work, right? Like people, I mean, these are kind of my peers here, and everybody might have came to know me through my work at a particular point in time, right? And through various sort of like life experiences or whatever, you know, you might have continued with a thing, or you might have like set it down a thing. So it's like this way of working is actually something that goes back to like maybe 2004 or something. So like the concept of sort of like working at a large scale on canvas, transporting it to another location, and like making it look like it was on the wall. It goes back to this short film that I was asked to be a part of and like make the artwork for. And the short film was happening in a hotel that was abandoned, and the people that got access to it. But it was like, okay, we're only gonna go in there like this day, so you have to figure out how you can like, and the character in the short film was an artist who was like making a mural for another character, you know, that had been killed, I think. And so that's kind of how the thing started, essentially. It was like, okay, well, how do I figure this out? You know, I have this set design piece that's going to be in this location that I don't have access to. What could I do? And so that was kind of like how it came about originally. You know, fast forward, you know, to maybe like 2005, 6 maybe, 5, 6. Then I got asked to be on a show at the Pasadena Armory Center for the Arts. The story behind that was that I did another large-scale piece for them earlier in 2002-03, that time. They liked the scale of it, so they approached me with this other show now called like Murals or something like that, you know. But again, the opportunity, like I was telling you, like if anybody gives me a wall,
Yeah.
it was like big enough, like let me have it, you know. And so they were attracted by the fact that I had did this earlier piece, and now this show specifically being called Murals, and they knew that I could work at that scale. And so then here I am again now teaching on the East Coast. I was in DC at the time. And how do you create the large-scale piece 3,000 miles away, you know? And so that way of working there kind of like reappears, you know, and gets shipped out, and then I come out and do the little, you know, magic trick of plastering it on and all that kind of stuff. And so over the years, that's been like a strain or a trajectory of the kind of way of attacking or approaching a painting interested in murals. Like many of you who maybe attended the multiple artist talks that we've given out this morning, like I've referenced the idea of painting at a mural scale is kind of like the IMAX of painting. You know, it's like this huge kind of scale of painting, and you know, it traditionally has roots in sort of like maybe narrative painting or historical kind of rootedness. You know, classically, you know, we think of Diego Rivera, or even going back, you know, the Sistine Chapel, these sort of like huge scale sort of murals and stuff like that. You know, and so that's been a trajectory. Now, along your art production thing, you have other opportunities to sort of engage in photo-based things or digital, you know, so. But generally, I think I'm looking always for like the container that's gonna hold the bulk of your knowledge that you have as an artist, you know? And, you know, I think now we're at a point where people can exist just as artists. You know, it's not the idea that you're a photographer, or you're a sculptor, or a painter, in this sort of categorical kind of ways of defining what it is that you do. Like, fortunately, I think we've come to a point where people are generally just accepted as artists. And you can make any kind of work that is rooted in a concept or way or stance of approaching the world, your view in relationship to the world around you. And through that lens, you oftentimes are engaging in these different sorts of, you know, approaches to ways of doing work and stuff. And so, even though that may be the case, I've always still looked for like, okay, what's going to be the most absorbent kind of medium that's going to be able to take all of the things I'm able to throw at it, you know. And so for me, this kind of way of working is representative of that, you know, because it references things about the environment, like when we're driving around the city, like in LA, like where we are, like there's this horrible but like amazing underpass that is near where we live, where we get off the freeway at our exit, and you go into the underpass, it's like dark and sooty, you know, it's got graffiti on it, it's like cluttered with all kind of like remnants of people living there, encampments which are still there, but it's just like the lived, like remnants of all of that humanity is just in that overpass, you know, or underpass, you know, and it's like those kinds of marks and that history and all of that stuff that's on those walls is like the stuff that I feel I'm constantly absorbing, like as we go around the city, you know, and the sort of language of, like I was talking to, yeah, I was talking to you about like, you know, this language that we've come to understand that like, when you see stuffed animals and candles laying out on the street, you know, it's like a memorial that something's happened to somebody, you know. Like nobody trained anybody to do that. Nobody trained anybody to put candles and stuffed animals and strap them to a street light, and all this stuff is just like this. For me, that kind of way of approaching painting and having it just on the wall where it's like kind of freed from the stretcher, and it just becomes this like everybody has this experience at home probably. Like how does the front of your fridge look? You know? Like when you have those magnets that are like on the front of your fridge, you're like, okay, I gotta go the soccer schedule for the kids, you know, and then we got the thing and it's that, and like you're just attaching stuff to the front of the fridge. It's like there's a way of composition that happens naturally there. And it's like, that's how I want these paintings to kind of function, you know? And so things that I make, you know, it's just, and like give enough time, there'd be more stuff, you know? But that's kind of like the approach I think that I'm taking.
Robin, sorry. June's not here. Robin, sorry. Robin, the work you generally do is not the work that we have in the gallery now. So this is, this represents also a slight change in trajectory, though the material is not foreign to you at all, right? So ceramics is where your home is anyways. But what was it like to kind of take on the challenge of producing a 10-foot tall totem, or integrating ceramics with organic materials like the palm frond?
Yeah, and yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge. I was looking forward to it because I really had been missing working with ceramics because I've been so busy. Like I feel like I'm always like in the middle of making samples for when I go in and teach classes, and so I just felt like I didn't have the time to work on the ceramics as much as I wanted to. So I felt like basically I knew what I wanted to do for this show, but then I had all these obstacles that kept coming up, and I was really worried about whether or not I was going to be able to finish it, because I would start the process, because I'll go back to the fawn. So I said, okay, I'm going to start working with the fawn first, because I wanted to make duplicate these ceramic boots, and I knew I wanted to fill that up. So I was able to really focus in on that and make those, and it went pretty smoothly. And then when it got to the total, that it was interesting because it took me a while to really get into the flow, and then I would make them, and I would be on the road and something would happen. And then a few of them blew up in the kiln, and I had to redo them. As you know, when you lose something in the kiln, it's like, ooh, that adds on another few weeks. So, but anyway, I really enjoyed the process, and actually while I was doing it, I was always trying to remind myself to be in the present, like just be there and not be thinking about, oh God, I have to finish this in time, because that would come in at times, right? And so I at times I would find myself just getting into that meditative space and just enjoying the feel of the clay and playing around with the texture, creating the textures, and then and then just also thinking about how for the laser, because then there's that part where you make the first part, then with the glaze, right? So wow, I kind of lost my train of thought. So where was I going? The total.
Yeah, the totem pole.
So it started. I felt like it was coming together. Certain pieces would come together, and I'm like, okay, I like the way this is going. And I was surprised at how quickly I was able to do the piece with the cowrie shells, because I wanted it to have 108 pieces on them, but I did 54. So I did half. So which was good, because I was using 108 because it's like quantum of energy, and then I'm like, now to do 54, and it worked out perfectly. And I was so happy that it didn't go in the kiln. But that was on me, because I was rushing it. I'm sure there was air, water, and that kind of stuff. But anyway, then the other pieces started to come together. But so I was just moving forward, trying to make it happen. But then I was starting to visualize how is this gonna stand up,
Right.
So.
Yes, I mean, not only are they beautifully glazed individual works, but you had to make them to be structurally capable of stacking and then handling each other and marrying together in a way. I think it as it stands in the gallery right now, that piece to me looks like ballet. Like it looks easy. But the beauty of ballet is that you don't see the effort behind it. And I feel like that piece represents it looks like you don't see the effort behind the crackle glazing perfectly in each little me, every little detail, every little bit of each one stands for that. Can you touch a little bit on the totem's identity itself and how that, like, why that was important to you to do? It becomes the centerpiece of the show, so I feel like it's worth talking about.
Right, yeah, it's, so as I had mentioned earlier, I've had spent time in India, and, so I knew that I wanted to pay tribute to one of the goddesses, Kali, who, represents that aspect of, the female creation energy that is, like, slays the negativity, and, meaning the negative, elements that reside in the human psyche, you know, and having, ego that's out of control, you know, just, she's all about, like, balancing that unity. So I knew I wanted to honor her, especially in this time that we're in right now, with, all the craziness that's happening in the world. And, so she is so I knew I wanted her at the top, and then one of the reasons why I have the scimitar on her crown, which she's represented that way, because that's like, represents the same too. But also, I also wanted to incorporate some of the creation elements that is associated with the female creative energy, and so I wanted to include the 5 elements, and so at least 5 of those vessels are representative of the 5 elements, which is just kind of, you know, part of other cultures as well. So I mean, every culture, because we're all made up of the 5 elements. So so I have, you know, the earth, fire, air, water, and so that I wanted that to be a whole part of her energy as well, that she encompasses all of that. So and then I also added some yantras in there. The copper sheets that are yantras are considered to be like a blueprint. It's like but anyway, it's like a blueprint, structure of energy. And yeah, so and one of them represents, one is called the Shri chakra, and the other one is called the womb chakra, and that's the one with the higher.
As I was working with that piece and installing it and thinking about it in the center of the show, and thinking about you talking about how it's this representation of Kali and this idea of this slaying of negativity and this this embracing of creativity and generation. It struck me as so obvious that Connie and I would have put it at the center of the show, but not as something that Connie and I even really talked about conceptually, but it becomes this natural spoke that kind of exists throughout the whole show, with this idea, if we're talking about not enough future and this not enough ability to create what we want to create, and so we have this creativity, a representation of a deity in the center, the celebration of this idea of being able to slay the negativity, being able to render the lack of future possible. So what I'd love to do is ask you all a question, and really this is a question about kind of where you all live and exist. You all exist in or around the Los Angeles area, and for me, Los Angeles is a city that is constantly in flux. It's never settled. It's never sure of where its center is. It's never sure of what it wants to be. It has so many parts that exist that maybe it doesn't want to either have a center or want to be sure of what it wants to be. And the thing about Los Angeles is unless you are one of the very lucky people, on a daily basis you end up traveling across it in one form or another. and getting to experience, you know, a myriad of changes and culture and unsettledness and raw humanity. I would love to hear your perspective as artists, you know, existing within that space, and how that environment may be kind of influencing and talking to you about kind of like driving what you're interested in creating. Because I know some of you are in like more of the South Bay area, like down by Long Beach, San Pedro, and John and Connie, you guys are like in the heart of the city. And Robin, you're a little bit more up, kind of in a different heart of the city. But you know, I mean, as much as Los Angeles has a heart of the city, there's so many little pockets and neighborhoods. But you know, each one of you have a different kind of story within this kind of metropolis that I'd love to kind of hear about your experiences and how it influences your work. Who wants to go first? Kate.
I've now spent 12 years up here. In the first half, I was like Manchester and 405, and I felt like I was closer to like what was happening artistically. I'm not going to go over all the internet, but but now, then later I moved down south to San Pedro, which felt like kind of like out in the boonies, and it kind of felt like I can just like hide in my little studio cave and get into the weird stuff I'm into right now, and if it doesn't match what's going on, like, it's fine, I'm just gonna keep going deeper and more weird, and so I started getting into, just naturally trying to surf there and getting into this, this secret society sort of that was happening, and I was like all these secret surf spots, I kind of want to document this, and so like how do I document this without like giving away where the spots are, because these are spots with names, but like the guys there like won't even really tell me the names, so I'm making up my own names. And then like I was thinking about Joe and Didion and like gonzo journalism, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna, like, my work is nothing like Ed Ruscha's, but like he did like the 9 swimming pools and the gas stations, and like I think it was some Los Angeles gas stations, so I'm like, okay, I'll call the series some Los Angeles reef breaks, and then I started numbering them, which was like the worst idea ever, because over the 5 years I kept changing the numbers. Okay, wait, was that one 7 or 3? And so like by the end I had like 28, and I will never do it again. But you know, I guess the question was about LA. I got into documenting like this small period of time in this small corner of LA. I was no longer traveling through it because I wasn't doing art installing as a day job anymore. So I just kind of went deep and tried to document the culture that's going on there, the good and the bad, and the very personal, my very personal perspective on it, which is like, this is not an objective scientific documentation. This is just Kate's. And so I think it's nuts.
I think for me, the influences that going through certain neighborhoods and working in different parts of the city, and when I think about LA, and you talk about it like, you know, it can have like many hearts, because where is the heart? You know, people might say it's downtown, people might say it's, you know, where Hollywood is, because a lot of people associate, you know, Los Angeles with that. And I feel like because it has so many communities and so many different cultures, that it's kind of like this hybrid kind of city in some ways, and that has lots of tentacles. And to me, it reflects to me in my art that I love nature, I love the water, I love the grit, I love observing people, and just like, you know, making mental notes and watching behaviors and things like that. So a lot of my work then takes these titles, or they're meant to be these kind of defenders of rights, or protectors and that sort of thing. And so when I see, you know, it makes me sad when I see people in the street. I mean, it's all this kind of like emotion, you know, that I think about when I think about my friends and my family and how you want to just kind of hold that near, and how do we, you know, create these environments or these, I make up stories for the characters that I make, and so it's like a fantasy in some ways, which I feel like is like Los Angeles too. It's like it's not real in some ways, but then there are other things that are very much real and very raw, and that's kind of feel like how stuff may show up in my work. So yeah.
John?
Well, I think one aspect of it that's really hit on the head, like when you said like if you're fortunate enough to kind of like move across these different areas, you know. So I think, you know, much like I was referencing the idea of somebody being defined as a painter, somebody being defined as a photographer, and that kind of thing. In LA, there's also the kind of like, oh, you live on the west side, you know, you're from the South Bay, whatever, like that's you. But the thing is that, you know, like you may work, your job may take you into these different spaces, or just even casually. One thing that's nice about the city, and I mentioned earlier, like I was teaching in DC, I also went to school in DC. And one of the things like I was always kind of rubbing up against in that space was this sort of limit in the sight lines of the space. By that I mean like, you would be in certain parts of the city, and it was like you could just see like almost just like what was in front of you, you know. Like whereas like in LA, there's parts that like almost every part of the city has a hill or a hilly elevated part to it, you know. So like we were kind of like in the Baldwin Hills area, right? So there's the Baldwin Hills overlook. You know, you could be further north in the Hollywood area. Obviously, you have the hills. You know, Pasadena, you have the hills. South Bay, you have Palos Verdes, and like the hill. So there's always this idea that you can look out, recognize yourself as being here, but knowing that you've had an experience 30 miles away, and see that distance, and see that proximity to where you are, and kind of like have a lay of the land, you know. And so for me, that was always something that I was missing, like when I was in DC, and also traveling so much of the time underground. It was always like, oh, I know the subway system like the back of my hand, but I can't tell you in a car how to necessarily get 10 miles away, which is, the city itself is like only 10 or I think or 11 miles like from tip to tip, you know, across. And so I think about stuff like that. I think about, you know, especially as I get older, like what it means to just be human, what it means to be like a person on the planet, you know. Living in a continuum of other accumulated people, you know what I mean? Like we're in 2025, and you know, depending upon how you count history, you know, that's 2,000 years, you know, into a certain future that, you know, somebody 2,000 years ago living would have had. You know, so what is our shared kind of human experience, and how far have we sort of deviated from that? You know, like we were standing out yesterday looking at the landscape, and I'm like, it's so nice to just sit on the coast up here and like look out and see a portion of the landscape that has nothing on it, and that is probably the same view that somebody 2,000 years ago might have had, you know, given a tree or two or something, you know. And then, you know, you live in a city like LA, or any really large metropolis, you know, even just here, you know, there's certain things that take you out of that continuum sort of human experience. And so like, as we're living, you know, like in this metropolis, it's like, I'm always looking for ways like to preserve that kind of thing, you know. I do like a lot of aquatic stuff, so I'm diving, scuba diving occasionally, and most recently I was doing these kayak escorts for swimmers who are swimming across the Catalina Channel. So you would have those kinds of experiences that take you back to a time, you know, that have you out there just in the raw elements, you know. And that was very much like a thing of connecting. And I think oftentimes people in the city are looking for ways to kind of find that continuum, find ways to connect. So we do live in a metropolis, but then you're popping out to do a hike, you know, you're popping out to get back into nature and stuff, to find that connection. And I just think that it's a dynamic place, but it's also something that if you're not careful, is very much ruled by a certain kind of just a certain set of contemporary interests that really don't have anything to do with the continuum of time, the continuum of like a real kind of human experience. You know, like I remember during COVID talking to a friend, and one of the things that we were collectively, I think, experiencing was what I was telling him essentially was like, you know, like check out that bird, man. Like that bird, it was just, I was just pointing to like a bird in the sky, but like, you know, that like today is just like Tuesday. You know what I mean? We were like in the height of COVID, you know, there's like people dying, like thousands dying. It was like today is like Tuesday to that bird, you know? And it's like, the idea was like, we're so far disconnected that we don't know how to be human anymore, you know? So it was like, what do you do when your day-to-day has been so disrupted, and now you have to like sit at home with these people that you usually just kiss your wife in the morning or whatever, go to work, you know, you see your kids for a hot second, and now you're stuck with these folks. You know, like literally, like you can't go outside, like these are the people that you live with every day, but now you're stuck with them. I mean, it's like you don't know how to be, you know, and that's sort of like, you know, I think that it's crucial to kind of still know how to be outside of, you know, what it means to like, you know, see the next movie or you know, like what this billboard's telling you or how to navigate traffic, you know, just stuff.
Rob?
Yeah, you know, when I think about my, like, first of all, where I live now, I live in an area, I would say it's the edge of Koreatown. And it's the area of the city that I had never lived in before. I've lived in a lot of different parts of LA. And so I notice when I'm in certain areas, I pay attention to like some of the paths that I take. And when I notice that I'm noticing the environment around me, and there's certain streets that I'll go down on a regular, and then I'm like, let me switch it up some, because then I wonder, because sometimes I like to see what's going on in another area and have a different experience, and I just notice how that really shifts things, you know. And then I get ideas, because sometimes I'll see certain trees that I really like, and that are amazing. I'm like, if I hadn't turned down the street, I would have missed out. So I have fun with it, with being in the city, and when I do go out, because I do spend a lot of time at home. There's days when I don't even go anywhere, and then there's times when I'm like going way across town somewhere, or I might get a routine when I'm teaching, and then I'll like I said, purposely just make a different room, and then I feel like it inspires me it definitely inspires my creativity on some level, because you know, I see something that makes me where I get inspiration for like painting or something, or even just being in LA and being in Koreatown and do so many different cultures there, and I see there's so much that I see. I'm always getting material because I do like to paint people, and so I'm like I'll see somebody with a certain expression, and that will inspire an idea for a piece of art. I don't know, did I answer that?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you said you found that home front.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. I went to visit she was having some challenges walking, and I'm like, okay, let's go for a walk. And next thing you know, there's the home from, and we're ready to, like that music. So when I walk, and thank you for reminding me, when I walk through the neighborhood, I definitely am like looking out to see what I can, like, see if there's something I can collect.
Speaking of collecting things in the city,
All right, yeah.
Lisa.
I'm a native Angelina, so the city is just
It
embedded
is,
in
yeah.
being who I am, and my work is definitely informed by being a city person. Some of my work I return to locations from my childhood to make video from those where I observed certain things. My father died in December of 2022, and I have his writing, and I'm mapping where he lived based on the writing that I have. You know, there's a cover with his name and address, so I can tell where he lived and what time period. And so I'm returning to those spaces. So, you know, I've lived in a variety of communities, and all of that just informs who I am, and the work is, you know, the work might not be specific to, like the current work in the gallery, to being a native Angelina, but it's informed by the experience of being in this particular place and the discoveries, you know, made along the way.
I think it's certainly, I think all your work, I was looking at it in the gallery today, and getting to hear you all talk about your work over the past couple of days. And talking with some of the students, I had the joy of being like, you all don't understand, but this is a really excellent sampling of where a lot of the like real Los Angeles art is right now. Like this is a lovely like dropper full of Los Angeles arts culture. And you know, we're missing two of our artists here. We're missing June Edmonds and we're missing John Weston, and they kind of round out the bunch. And June is making these expressive painting works and these expressive drawings that are on display in there. And John is making these hard edge abstraction pieces that engage with color in a way that is as much Los Angeles as I could possibly put a finger on it, with these neon colors and these gradients and these high contrasting, vivid, saturated shapes. And so I think that you know, for me, having lived in Los Angeles and having left Los Angeles and traveling back there, and I get a chance to have a fresh viewpoint on everything. Yeah, because when I come back, everything is kind of like is new again. It strikes me as a solid and very clear voice of the area that's coming through in this. I want to thank you all for speaking with us tonight, and I want to thank you all for being here. So I'm gonna do my thank yous now. So I want to thank the Harold J. Miossi Charitable Trust for helping to support the Harold J. Miossi Art Gallery here at Cuesta College. They are the reason why we are able to put on amazing shows like this and to bring artists to Cuesta College for students and for the community to interact with. I want to thank Cuesta College for being the house for the Harold J. Miossi Art Gallery. It is through the support of the Board of Trustees and the faculty and the administration that we are able to make these things happen. Bo Branham and Magnolia Stork are the people behind the scenes of the gallery that really help to make things happen, and I couldn't do my job without them, and I also couldn't do my job without the entire faculty of the Fine Arts Department here. Not Enough Future is open through December 12th, and I am very much looking forward to all the interactions with the students and with the public for the show, because I think it's really special, and I encourage you all, if you've seen it already, go back and see it again, and if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to come out and see it. for the first time. I'm going to plug our next show as well. In the spring, we have Guggenheim fellow Samantha Nye showing a film that she recently filmed here in San Luis Obispo at the Madonna Inn and at Sycamore Hot Springs, who are partnering with us for that exhibition. Featured in that show is Annie Sprinkle, the famous performance artist, who will also be giving a talk before that show in January. So mark it on your calendars to come out and see that next one as well. I want to thank you all so much for coming, and yeah, the show is open still if we want to go back and have a little more conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.